maybe one comment, Mr. Westj, is to congratulate our city leadership, basically the Mbasita group, the Mbara Traders Association, for organizing Mbara City Festival. There is a lot of excitement. Motoka zempaka ziriyo zirabarabamu, abasigazi bona bacha mukire. Konkananisha bangu tuchamuke responsibly. Motoka yempaka negumeri motoka yempaka, don't cross the road when it's coming and then it knocks you. And by the way, when it knocks you, totok hababo mushango ngubagwa kusinga. Even those who are standing along the roads to watch, please keep a distance. Mjire hoka distance akumwasigahare. Celebrating together tomorrow. Tomorrow the whole of High Street is going to be closed. Abashubuzi bako babi ebintu babyanikiro mu ruguto. So ko reno enda kugura, ko enda kwija nobo ko enda kushamara nkanye kureba kumbarara yahindukamu ntkwakira ijo mu rembo rwitu oshemererwe aho muri Mbarara City Festival. Otherwise, I wish you a good program.
Welcome, Peter Mpaka. Sifa Safi, panelist on the Big Set. Good morning and welcome to the Big Set.
Good morning, Wanyaje. Good morning, the gentleman I'm with here. Good morning, our dear listeners. Thank you so much for having us and for giving us your time for the Big Set. Banyaje, as usual, quite a lot happens over the week, but this time round, I want to also add my voice to those who are congratulating students upon having, excelled in the UCE exams, for those who made it. But as usual, those who didn't make it, it's not at the end of the world. And if you cannot make it to A level, please feel free and take it easy and join any tertiary institution. You can even succeed over there. But the issue of earthquakes in Turkey and Syria, like you said, quite sad. Quite a number of people have died, but rescuers are still, trying to do their best to ensure that at least they can save a life. So of course, like every other person has said, we are calling upon the international community to do whatever they can to ensure that at least things to do with aid in regard to the earthquakes is really inevitable. And finally, Rwanda's president, Paul Kagame, was accusing his counterpart in Congo, saying that he's the person that has really delayed and derailed the endeavor to bring back peace in Congo. So we don't know how that is going to end, but like I said here, it's not about to end soon because the causes are far wide and, they stem back from way back in the years. Thank you so much.
Welcome to the Big Set. Eric, good morning and welcome to the Big Set.
Yes, good morning, Bajaji. I'm so happy to be here once again, and I would really love to say good morning to everybody that listening into the Big Set today. I would really love to give a shout out to the heroes that are really serving this city, and that is the border community, the hardworking people in trade. Personally, there are people that have been battling high interest rates. Yeah, we well know we talked about consumer protection one time here. And we know that even when people form circles to run away from banks that are charging them 30%, they still go into these saving groups that still adopt the same high interest rates like 36 and 72%. So I urge the people out there to be very vocal for us to raise a campaign against these illegal interest rates. Currently, the central bank rate sits at 10%. So that means that we should be urging to ensure that our saving groups are not exceeding 15 or 20%. So also all those leaders who are leading circles, who are leading all those saving institutions, these are some of the recommendations that we should be making to our members. And to all those candidates that have finished their exams, I would just simply like to tell you that your academic identity does not define your intelligence. Intelligence comes from physical ability and other exceptional talents, and we have seen in reality that one's academic identity is not the only determinant of success. So I say that we urge on and you continue the pursuit of happiness, and I'm really glad to be here to deliberate on all matters human rights today. Thank you.
That's Eric Katonji. Welcome to the Big Set. Let me welcome Edgar Mtundisa. Good morning and welcome to the Big Set.
Good morning to you, Mr. Westgate. I'm Edgar Mtundisa, petroleum engineer now, and I'm really happy to be here. Like as many here have already mentioned, I'd like to congratulate those ones who just recently sat the UC exams and the results are out well. And I also like to congratulate UPDF on that here Saturday. I was part of that event, and also I was impressed by how UPDF has really become professional over time. They are almost in very many things.
You just heard the reply.
And yes. Yes, I tell you, this UPDF, especially when you look at the projects their neck wing is doing, it's really very interesting. it was hard to believe that this is indeed an army that is doing all these things. Yeah, otherwise, thanks so much. I'm very happy to be joining the show today.
All right. Let me also take a...
Perhaps you should tell us, is he the man among the other and how did you get the invitation to Penang Second?
Everyone was invited. Everyone had the opportunity of going there. But Peter, you should have known that. Let me welcome for the very first time Alex Ruggiero is joining us for the very first time on the Big Seat. Well, good morning, Alex, and welcome to the Big Seat.
Thank you very much, the host, Banyaji. I'm Great Alex Ruggiero and flag bearer Weju. Didn't go through, was not easy. I'm very happy for the invite. It's the very first time here. I want to add my voice to the panelists I'm having in the studios. I, for one, the candidates who passed, it wouldn't have been them, or they didn't do it by themselves. We were out of COVID for 2 years. These kids were at home, so we have to give it up to the teachers as well, of cutting across. Even the senior six that are going to come, the teachers did their part. We have to also thank the parents who had to provide. Within the 2 years of COVID, parents had to keep buying scholastic materials for these kids to keep reading. Some parents, even 2 years what you study you can forget. So it is I don't know, would I say also the curriculum or changing something? It has helped a lot.
Okay. I want to welcome the entire team this morning for the Big Seat. We're taking a breather when we come back into our topic of discussion. I've already put the question on our social media handles. Go right there and give us feedback. Later on, I'll give you an opportunity to join us by call on 752-912-912 and 0780-912-910. We are talking about our trending story. When we step for the break, when we're back, we'll be talking about that and much more. Good morning.
It's tough. It's Creative Digital Media.
Governments and all sector players, and now the media is awash with how Uganda does not intend to respect human rights. This is a true description of what government is. What do you read of this? Because we need to know, is it in good intention that government is not interested in renewing the mandate of this office? Eric.
Thank you very much, Council in the Making, Mr. Wesley Banyaji, and everybody in the studio. Earlier on, somebody inquired about my feeling about this move. A bold move, I would say, by the state. When Honorable Riem came on and gave on the news and actually made some few remarks on TV, there was a little bit of split opinion. But there's a bit of an unheard voice when it comes to this contention. The fact that the decolonization pathway of Africa has not yet been complete. We forget that even however much we have these current feelings about, let me address the elephant in the room, about some of our brothers that are still under incarceration, that might be going under the most horrible conditions. They are probably not even in that yellow uniform. They are in places that cannot easily be located, we still have to acknowledge that there had to come a time where we detach ourselves from this continual capitalistic move by foreign powers to gain control over small states, subordinate states. The United Nations was formed in 1945. Uganda was a British protectorate ever since 1964 up to 1962. Those were 68 years of colonization. Up to now, we know that we have not yet rejuvenated our identity. The time had to come, and it is 60 years. Those are 128 years of still feeling that we cannot trust our own systems to solve our own local problems and initiatives. This is a bold move that speaks for sovereignty of the state. This is a positive that every Ugandan should take on from here. That ever since 1894, finally, we are taking a step to detach ourselves from an umbrella of a former colonial power. In terms of cost and resource saving, imagine the mindset of many Ugandans who have had this job-seeking mentality of saying that we shall work for the United Nations, other than working to see how to mobilize their own local resources and create local opportunity. I see how much of the work of the research that the Human Rights Commission was doing, that local NGOs will finally get the opportunity to do. Look at how they will be able to carry out research. I imagine that council, once you graduate,
you should be able to see what that's how Edgar is seeing, giving you.
After moderating about human related issues, societal issues for this long time, I think it's high time for you to upgrade and go into work into seeing about how are the people who are incarcerated in prisons living their life. Let's look at now this court. Let's look at strengthening our court system. Me, I'm looking at us being responsible for our own environment, domestic control. Right now we are at the bottom in terms of economic ranking, even at East African level. Part of the danger will be our loss of international credibility. Can that be finally the pressure that can mobilize us personally? Because now the government has pointed all the attention to itself. And me, I like situations of pressure. I have performed and done things in the events of pressure. This is an opportunity to finally now put to light the nature and the ability, the professionalism. Somebody talked about the professionalism of the army. Can we now see that transiting to the police? Now the police, the torch is onto you. Uganda Police Force. The torch is now onto you. It was unfortunate that it was the Minister of Foreign Affairs who came out with this news. Or somebody within judiciary to come in and just say that we have good news.
But does that ministry still even exist?
Yes,
after the death of Father Lokondo and the exit of Matende?
Yeah, maybe. Foreign Affairs maybe seemed a little hands off. A little bit. It would diplomatically, it's not the one I would have used. But I think that this should have come. The narrative was quite important. So in the next 30 days, if I don't see government coming out to maybe say, guys, this is now an opportunity for our police department to be representative, to be ideal, to be professional. Maybe this is the mood that we carry from Taresita, celebration of liberation, celebration of that. So how do we overcome some of these challenges? So for me, this is the feeling I'm carrying. This is the voice that we have not been talking about, because when I've talked to so many people, people have given up on Africanization. Honestly, we have given up. There was a time we used to come in kanzus and back cloth and talk about how we shall revolutionize the black race. But Nelson Mandela died, Gaddafi went off the scene. Now I'm looking for the next Gaddafi.
Okay, thank you. Let me go to Mutunjisa here. Edgar, African solutions to African problems.
Yes.
We did not necessarily need the office of the United Nations Human Rights here in Uganda to uphold these same rights. And after all, why would we have an agency from outside to determine of how a sovereign state like Uganda should govern the affairs of its people?
Yeah, thank you so much. I think as much as I appreciate the spirit in which you bring this conversation, but I think that spirit is really very largely unrealistic, because we need to understand the problems there don't just start with a body like the Human Rights Commission. Now, when speaking about problems issues of liberty, issues of neocolonialism, and to stop it, you don't start with such an organ. Because even then, even if you chase away these people, you're still colonized in many ways. I talk about education, talk about even the financial systems. The fact that you still use
that seems to be banned.
Yeah, the fact that you still,
yes.
the fact that you still have all these Bretton Woods institutions, that the IMF doing everything that you do. So it is just far-fetched for you to think that this is a step, especially in the undermining the human rights to start with. The police force itself, the different features we have by agents of the government itself. So such a government cannot say now it has strong institutions. But beyond that, can really there be enough of human rights where you can come and say, now we're enough, now we don't need anyone to talk about human rights? I don't think that can.
But if I tell you, you came to terms to saying whites leave us, we can now handle it ourselves. It's about time that we said enough of you having to run the affairs in this country. We can actually do it on our own. We have the Uganda Human Rights Commission. We have the IGG. We have all these. We have the whole Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs. We have the judiciary. We have different NGOs and players that are charged with making sure that people are accountable for as far as human rights are concerned.
And then how would it be a hindrance that there is still another body internationally recognized with that national mandate that says we think this is a problem? I don't see how the presence of UN would undermine the presence of your local structures. Why can't all those local structures and those local groups and NGOs coexist? What is the problem? That for us, we must be only us for us to see these things. But beyond that, it's even not true, because we still have things like Amnesty International, which we still observe and report internationally. So the government is still not even running off from that international observation sort of a thing. So I don't see why even this move, because even if the move was, let's say, one that was just, it still just won't work. There's no way you are, in a way, separating yourself from the bigger picture of international observation, because I've shown you the other alternatives like Amnesty International, which will still be able to report on such. Okay. So as opposed to what these guys think, I think we are losing more opportunities by chasing away this entity, and I will expound on that. Okay. And it has very big repercussion in terms of international, how this called, in terms of international relations.
Okay, we'll come back right to you. Sifa Safi, I hope you will not say this has been long overdue to have this office ejected out of our country, because it was inconsequential anyway. The government would never consider. After all, the huge volumes of other reports that were made by other agencies.
Problems. That is what is going to happen. My friend here said that we still have borrowing from other countries, that happens. Even China borrows. Even these other countries think are very big in terms of economy and whatever still borrow. So that one is here and there, because we cannot, but what I'm saying, this is very good, and I want to congratulate those who sat and realized that this is what they're supposed to do, because time is running, and if you are just lagging there waiting for these people to determine whatever is going to happen in this country, we are not going to make it. But like I said, you're about to hear some of these opposition politicians, and maybe because they're paranoid and all that, they will start telling you, it's because you're heading to 2020 something, you're heading for elections, and they don't want these people to be here and see what we are doing. That is not right to colors or race. Sorry, Peter?
Don't listen out to Peter.
I have to listen to him, because
but how is it possible that you will have to determine what human rights are in my own country? Exactly. I mean, where do you get the audacity to think now us as Banyarwanda are supposed to conduct the affairs of our country
perfect
with your yardstick? How is that possible?
Exactly.
Because we don't control what happens in New York or London.
And the next thing you hear them saying that Rwanda has a dictator, according to them, because he doesn't really play to their tunes.
Okay.
So for me, Banyaja, as I conclude, yes, there are rights and freedoms that people are supposed to exercise, but they should go hand in hand with responsibility, like we have always said. Much as you tell someone that they have a right, to opinion and expression, but don't start accusing people falsely, and mudslinging people, and tainting their names and whatever. So for me, rights go hand in hand with freedoms, but we should stop these things of waiting for the whites to define for us what human rights are.
Thank you, Sifa. Let me come to a person that has been badly wanting to talk about this. How bad is the problem of human rights, especially you that keep singing about the brutality, about the dishonest of governments as regards to human rights? that now we badly needed this office to exist in our country. And after all, how much has it impacted on the respect of human rights by all the different stakeholders? Peter Mpaka.
Thank you, SJ. For the first time since I've been meeting Sifa Safi and Eric Katunji, I really want to congratulate them for submitting as if they live on Mars and they don't understand the situation in Uganda. That's my congratulations to you. You can only say thank you. So my submission is that this office for a long time could have been a silent office, and the time had come when this office was becoming more relevant to the issues in Uganda as far as human rights are concerned. All the other bodies we have mentioned are simply barking dogs, are simply silent statues. Talk about the Uganda Human Rights Commission. You remember when the other director died at Wandegea, Mulago roundabout, Medi Kagwa. It took a while before even the president could appoint a substantive leader of that commission, and people were complaining all work was static because the commission was there but it wasn't well constituted and nothing could be done. So it was there but as a statue. Talk about all other bodies like you've been, the IGG, Parliament of Uganda. Talk about all these, they have been docile. So this UN Human Rights Office has been standing out as could I say as an independent body? Could I say like an independent class monitor? Could I say like an independent run-to fortress? Recently we saw some journalists being beaten up just right in front of that office, and those were ugly scenes. Internationally, people were being beaten. I remember we had a very heated discussion here about the beating of journalists, and you know, a woman crying, saying I belong to a certain media house. If I'm allowed to say it, it was NTV. This is NTV, and the guy was holding a camera, the lady was holding a camera and putting on his, but the military police was beating her up as if they are beating an animal, which we're not even allowed to beat. And then you have another recently when some youth went there to protest and demonstrate against the oil pipeline, something like that, and they were also roughed up and beaten so horribly. And then we also have some activists in our NUP who also went there to call upon the voice of this office, the UN Human Rights Office, as far as the challenges we are having in our country. So I'm looking at this as a picture cleaning venture for the government, trying to remove these ugly scenes that we have been seeing, because people have come to understand that yes, we have a United Nations Human Rights Office in Uganda. Let us take there our petitions, let us take there our cases. Maybe we can get a fair hearing, because when you go to the IGG, there is nothing you get. When you go to Human Rights Commission, it is bound up, Uganda Human Rights Commission. When you go to Ministry of Integrity, Ministry of Justice and whatever, and Constitutional Affairs, you don't get the justice you deserve. So for me, I think it is far-fetched, like my brother Edgar has said, for Sifa Safi and my brother Eric Katunji to say that now we are doing away with these neo-colonialists, we are doing away with these bodies which are agents of neo-colonialism. This is not neo-colonialism. This is us, and this, yes.
You keep on referring to, UN, people are beaten, people are this and that. The UN has been in Congo for I don't know how many years. What is the situation of the human rights?
For the whole generation, literally.
You have
just
said,
that.
Yes. You have said what? What's the question?
The UN has been in Congo, you know.
Yes.
So I don't know how many years now.
Yes, yes.
Under the pretext that they're going to, you know, for human rights and protection and whatever. What is the condition of human rights in Congo?
Okay, let my
I can
brother-
answer that under authority. You see, the issue of Congo is very complicated.
But
And
excuse me,
listen. No,
I
listen.
would prefer that you supplement on Peter's.
He's doing so.
I'm
That
not
is
that.
not Peter. Ask Peter.
No, but it's okay. He has the knowledge. He has the knowledge. Accept it. Accept it.
On Congo, one time we had a secretary general of the UN who actually died in Congo in a peacekeeping mission. For the first time in history, it was the first time we lost a secretary general of UN on a mission. He died in Congo. He had come to settle the issues in Congo. But the politics around Congo and its resources, knowing its personal resources in the whole world, they could not allow her to travel back. I mean he came, he solved the conflict, he made the parties. On his way back, the plane was crashed. Because the politics in Congo, the people there is just beyond UN. But at least it shows you that UN has ever lost a secretary general to solve that issue. So that level of sacrifice, the UN as an entity can't be questioned. But beyond that, your countries themselves would fight the UN. UN is not US.
I don't
Yes, you ratified.
No,
When you ratified some of those agreements, then you must be bound.
Exactly, you must be bound. Then the question is, what's the point of you ratifying the Human Rights Convention by UN yourself? Then the other you say, we don't want your offices. We don't want you to watch us.
That doesn't answer
So
my
what
question.
point is that? That I'm part of you, I've ratified to this charter, but now you know what? I don't want your offices, I don't want you to come to my affairs and oversee me. There will be no point of ratification. So if you're claiming that you want to go against
My question was simple and clear. What has changed
go
in
and say
terms of
you know
human
what of
rights?
UN, you know what you're part of
Because
UN.
of the UN in Congo.
But Matondi, sir, you know, you could speak about the question that she's asking. The United Nations has been in Congo for a while. Our whole entire generation.
What has
literally.
it changed? Now,
How
human
much
rights are concerned.
has the respect and upholding of human rights gone a very long way in the Congo because of the presidents of the United Nations?
I think the problem here was that, you know, United Nations, normally they always are diplomatic. And that was the same Secretary General, one who died, who brought up what we call the UN peacekeeping mission. It started with him. But its forces, as we mentioned, you see the global politics here, the geopolitics are so big that there are many people, players, that not UN itself could control, because you need the military. Now the UN has no that much military power, which is not the same thing for enforcement of things like human rights, where they actually, even the advice is just advisory. As you mentioned, they've never killed the president because they've not avoided the human rights and stuff like that. So why would you not accept to be watched by a body to which you ratified?
I think the information is gotten, unless if I just don't want to accept it.
It's not about not wanting to accept it,
Yes.
but it doesn't satisfy what I asked.
But we can move on nevertheless. Conclude on that matter.
Okay, so for my submission is that we have a really bad picture. Museveni's militaristic government and militaristic tendencies have soiled the picture of Uganda out there, and actually it's jumping out of the saucepan into the real fire when you close these offices, because now all eyes are going to be on Uganda, trying to see maybe some of this. Why are they even chasing us out? Like I said, why do you ratify to these other submissions and then you want to say on the issue of human rights, please, no, don't go there.
Okay.
So for me, I still want to really go deeper and condemn the abductions, the beatings, the torture, the extrajudicial killings, and all the disappearances of people that we are seeing. And on this, allow me, remember our comrades who died in the campaign on 18th and 19th of November 2021.
Or 2021.
Yes.
Thank you. Let me bring in Alex Gretorigero here. This is not an isolated situation where we saw governments. Let's put an end to this. This was after a report of the United Nations Committee on Human Rights. There was a report that was pinning government and agencies of government on its impunity and violation of human rights. And we know how repulsive General Museveni's government is sometimes when something ill is said about it, and the next thing they do is, well, let's show you how mighty we are. We shall stop you and put you out. And this is exactly what the government did. It's in its response of the report by the United Nations Human Rights Committee It says, let's end this, let's go out. Literally in a very militaristic way.
Events are recorded, we know.
We know.
In this
If
country.
you're not,
No, it's
if
not
you're
about-
not in agreement with any other report you've read before, how would
Why do
you
you agree with
believe this?
Who said I'm not in
Thank
agreement?
you, thank you
Who
very
says I'm
much.
not in agreement?
Let's give Alex.
Shoot me.
Yeah.
Can you give us can you first give us the report on the November death that I've talked about? Or
Some
the people wanted to
reports,
kill Katumba Wamara, or the people have been killing the sheikhs.
Yes, Alex, where are the reports? Where are those reports?
My friend, my panelists, my friends, some reports are not meant for the public.
But if at all it concerns the people of
What
Uganda,
about human rights?
how is that possible?
Sincerely,
It's not a classified
sincerely,
report
human rights
that it deals about an invasion of the country.
How could we even talk about someone losing a life and you want a report? If the security agencies made a report, they made observations, they are cleaning up. The reports are not meant for the public, but that is for security anyway. Back to the question. Thank you very much, and good morning once again, our listeners. I want to inform my friends in the studios today. This office has not been closed. Rather, the government preferred to work with the officers directly in Geneva. It has been closed in Uganda, but they have not said they are not going to work with them. It was the report. So I want to inform you, if this entity was opened here in 2006. That is when we had war in northern Uganda and what. So if they were trying to check then what was happening in the country, ever since then what has happened?
Is the human rights situation in Karamoja stable now?
I'm coming to that. I don't know when you were last in Karamoja, or if you want to.
Last week.
What is there? Did you have a report?
I'm going to respond to that.
Thank you very much. So I want to thank the Africans. This time round, we are trying to accept the patriotism thing, the Pan-Africanism thing, because the president has been talking about it for a long time. This is the time when Africans, we are waking up. If my friend talked about decolonization, this is one way of decolonizing Africa. Now, we have us, the youth, now we are talking about these things. Back then, this institution came. It's a global thing. We won't look at one country. If we are to present, or if you're giving up something, an example, let's look at other countries. Okay. Just because other countries have other bigger issues to speak about,
give me two countries,
and they not speak about human rights.
Countries where people have been killed by stray bullets.
We just talk about America just now.
Give me two countries.
Yesterday,
let's have order.
No, yesterday in the UK there was a shooting.
Yes, let's have order.
These are
in cold blood.
What was it?
You see, it is different from Banyaji picking up an arm and going to Mbara University of Science and Technology and killing innocent students. Yes. That's different. No, the responsibility of the state organ. Let's be realistic.
Let's be realistic.
Yes.
Let's be realistic. If you speak like that, if the commander-in-chief said we took out someone, did someone have an arm or he didn't?
He didn't. He didn't have an arm on him.
You're sure? Yes. How?
That was the thing.
But if he was armed, why would the president have to apologize anyway? Because the law allows the armed forces to use government coercion or force.
He had to apologize because he's the head of the country. And when you're if you're in your home, sincerely, if you're in your home, you backlash at a kid. Later on in the evening, you might come and you find a wolf talking to the.
When they know their cause of action is legitimate.
No, you find you backlashed and it was really bad.
Okay, Alex, thank you. Let's have Eric here.
Yeah, Mr. Wesige, I would not love a perception to be taken away here that whoever stands in support for the stop of this mandate of the Human Rights Commission to operate locally is against the rights of other Ugandans who had a political idea, tried to campaign for that political idea and lost their freedom and have been arrested illegally. You know, when the loss of life, just because other people are killing does not justify me to be killing. But I need us to be confident and strengthen ourselves on what the big picture is. What we have to avoid is the illusion of a solution. I'm going to tell you, if the UN has been around for under the same time under the same time that opposition has had concerns about the mannerism in which elections are held, is it going to make a difference that they are out? Is that they have been around and no change has happened?
Perhaps
for me,
perhaps Edgar and Peter, you have very serious questions to answer. What difference does it make anyway?
You know, in the beginning today, I made I've always also talked about that if your political idea is entirely based upon power, then me as the public, we shall always perceive that power is all that you are after. Today in my opening remarks, I mentioned a very boring but critical economic comment about interest rates.
Yes.
Yeah, which is something that outside here, you want to start a business, you want to educate someone, you want to survive in this harsh economy.
But Ugandans will not pay too much attention to that.
No one will pay attention. If a lot of such pressure, of such campaigns, if we got arrested and we heard that Ugandans are in prison because of a policy that the Bank of Uganda has, that would be a very tricky situation for a dictator to deal with. But if your orientation is about power, then that means that the narrative is still the same. We have been educated. That means that we are still the apple from that same tree. I acknowledge that however much I'm in support of this position, that corruption has been the biggest challenge. And by us not acknowledging that, is that now I see an opportunity for us to exert this pressure and revert it to strengthening.
What you're saying in a nutshell,
yes,
is how about you Ugandans? You get more concerned about things that matter to us direct than those that have to be cared so much by an outsider. We're stopping for a break. When we come back, more of the discussion. Keep the messages coming on our social media, and I'll be able to later on open the show. The calls on 752-912-912 and 780-912-910. The big city is taking a break. We'll be right back. Good morning.
No.
Creative Digital Media. Creative Digital Media. Creative Digital Media. Creative Digital Media.
We are back 3 minutes past the top of the hour on Western Uganda's biggest radio station, 91.2 Crooze FM. Great music, great friends. My name is Westige Banyaji. The big city is on. You can be able to catch us online on Crooze TV. The visuals are very clear, crystal clear. The team is in here and we're having a good time. The conversation is on our Facebook page, 91.2 Crooze FM, and on Instagram, 91.2 Crooze FM. We are on Twitter as 912 Crooze FM. Crooze TV is showing the big sit right there, courtesy of Creative Media. And I want to thank the team behind the cameras for doing a very fantastic job. With me in studio is Alex Greturujero, Sifa Safi, Eric Katonji, Edgar Mtundisa, and Peter Mpaka. We're talking about the Office of the United Nations Human Rights here in Uganda. Government, through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, came out and said, we don't intend to do the mandate of this office in this country. If we need them, we shall look for them in Geneva. But for now, pack your bags and go. Your feedback should be coming in on our social media handles. We can be able to read some of that because this show entirely belongs to you. I can see Doris Tumanya, you're thanking Edgar. You have a person who is looking out for you and thanking you so much for the good job. I have Wakanda Brothers streaming in from Masaka. Shout out to you and thank you so much. There are a couple of people that are listening in and the feedback is amazing. I'll read some of the messages. I have Aaron Mwesije here, who is saying, according to the Global Human Rights Index, Uganda is ranked with 7.1 index points, yet the best performer, Finland, has 0.3 index points, and the worst, Yemen, with 9 index points. Uganda is almost equivalent to Yemen, which has had conflict and wars for over decades. Literally interpreted that Uganda's instant conflict and negative war, using principles of negative evidence. The Human Rights and the Rule of Law indicator considers the relationship between the state and its population. So far as fundamental human rights are protected and freedoms are observed and respected. The higher the indicator's value, the less protected are the human rights and the rule of law of the country. Why has Uganda terminated the only tenure of the United Nations Office of Human Rights, not the entire UN offices based in Entebbe and other foreign human rights agencies? That's a question. The UN has been employing many Ugandans, source of foreign exchange. However, ironically, amidst an unemployment crisis, the government terminates unemployment provision agencies which operates to support government policies, but not rather the contrary. How does its presence intervene or impede the operations of government? How does the government intend to employ the youth and Ugandans who lost jobs that have been employed by this office? How is the government intending to balance the losses in foreign exchange? We are losing. And Aaron, I thank you so much for that write-up. It's been very fantastic. A couple of people that are listening again, keep that the messages coming. Let me go to those that are streaming in on Crooze TV. I have Jesus, Ernest, I see you. Tumkunde Ronald, I see you, and you're really happy. I can see the feedback is amazing here. Jonan Pitbad, I see you, and Atwine Yefusa, I see you. Ariho Owen, Banine Dixon, and Victor Junior Victor, not forgetting Amonjire Ronald, and a couple of you that are watching live. We want to thank you so much. Tell a friend to tell a friend. The visuals are on. Catch it on Crooze TV. You'll be able to see everything that is happening. Let's not do this for ourselves. Let me open the lines so that you have your say on this topic of discussion on 752-912-912 and 780-912-910. Call in and get your opinion known. The big seat on 752-912-912 and 780-912-910. The big seat.
Yes,
yes, good morning. What's your name? Are you calling us from?
Yeah, this is Vincent calling in from Chanka and Abuhuzu.
Yes. You have Great to Rijero here.
Yeah.
Yes, on the topic of discussion.
But my stand is, sincerely, we as Africans, when shall we be independent? Because if we keep on depending on the foreign institutions and organizations, then we shall not be able to make our own decisions, and this will affect our development as Africa and in Uganda in particular. Thank you.
On spot on right there. 752-912-912 Call us and let us know what you think about the termination of tenure of the Office of the United Nations Human Rights here in the country on 752-912-912 and 780-912-910. And our line, the first line of Airtel, is seeming to have some technical glitch, but we shall rectify that and have your opinion known. The big set.
Yes, my friend, Mr. Wesley Banyaji.
Good morning.
Good morning too. Thank you for the program, and I want to thank all the panelists that you have today.
Yes, please.
This is Mwajira Yohana Remy calling in from Kashonji, Chirura district. I only wanted to thank Sifa Safi and Great Rijero for their well-thought submission, and I think I pity the group of Peter Mpaka who still think that Uganda can only survive if we only believe in the white community.
But let me ask you before you go off. If at all it's a matter of not depending on whoever comes from outside, then why don't you expel the entire group of people that come from outside? It doesn't matter whether human rights or not. There are a couple of people that come from the West to manage the affairs of this country.
Actually, Mr. Wesley Banyaji, the President of the Republic of Uganda has always indirectly dismissed these offerings, whatever these whites pretend to bring in this country. But you see, when we want something from them, you know we cannot survive as Uganda minus those whites. We shall still have them, but they should desist using Ugandans to infringe on our rights. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for calling in. Let me end the last call this segment, and then I can see it on 752-912-912 and 780-912-910. The big set. Hello caller. Yes, what's your name and where are you calling us from?
I'm Dixon.
Yes, Dixon, where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Finger.
Yes, on the topic of discussion this morning.
Good morning too.
Good morning. Looks like you're having fun right there. The big set. Yes, good morning.
Good morning. This is Dan calling.
Yes.
I think the government has kubanga nebagamba pipeline bagijjewo katedenda uliwa
tetukutegedde bulungi oba otuddiremu.
I'm saying if the European Union Parliament can stand and say that the Euro pipeline should stop they can't count our freedom. Then they saying they are promoting our freedom in Uganda.
Yes, we see the connection. We can relate. Thank you so much. Let me come back to studio. You just heard from a few callers and their opinion on this matter. And the last caller, if you really understood him well, he says, how can EU go in Brussels and say the East African crude oil pipeline shouldn't go on, but you don't want Ugandans to say, hey, Office of the United Nations, please leave. That's double standards. How about if we respect the sovereignty of our country to say, because we've given mandate to government to choose on our behalf what's good and what's not good for our country. Yes, either of you can go.
I can respond on that. First of all, start with the one of EU. These issues are very different, and one of oil and one of human rights.
How different are
they? They are different in this way. On one of human rights, we are able to interrogate that resolution by the EU Parliament, the grounds versus what was in reality. Me, myself, was against the EU in that context because they were just misguided.
I doubt.
The same thing we do.
By who?
There is record even I had a TV show on that. So I don't know how you get it out from. So even on this one here, what we expected is a response to that report, because the EU had a report against our ECOP and we challenged it with facts, with analysis, and indeed, no wonder it was taken back. We remember that resolution was taken back by EU. So the same thing here could have happened, but we don't have a report on the human rights. So lastly, I think we need to understand that this is not just about colonialism. No one here in this show, at least not me, is maybe someone who supports colonialism and stuff like that. We know there are many mechanisms to fight colonialism, but this is not one of them. Just an office that you think this office don't need them here, and yet you still have the UN, all your financial system is controlled by them. I think it's just it's a very lame argument to make. I'm sorry to say.
Okay.
That this is anyway connected to reducing colonialism. It's very lame.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
yes, Eric.
Yeah, Mr. Wesiga would have to really disagree with Edgar that this is not a substantial step towards overcoming or realizing our decolonial pathway. Do we remember?
But why don't we do it wholesomely? Why is it in isolated the East? Why not say it's now at a very structural level as government? We've chosen to say every United Nations agency in this country, we are going to do an audit of your relevance in this economy. If we don't find you fit, we shall push you out. Why is it? Must it be isolated?
Yeah, because the way governments operate is to be systematic. And once it's a full out, pull out, then that is symbolizing enmity, and autonomy should not be conflicted with foreign conflict.
Yes.
Yeah. For what I really wanted to say is that, do we remember that time in COVID when one UN agency had listed a supplier that was supplying poor quality beans? Because we trusted that the UN supplier list for posho and beans would be of quality. We have this internal perception that these guys are angels, that these guys have our best interest at heart, and now you're talking about EU, you're talking about UN. You forget we don't even have our own African Union. We have a dysfunctional East African community. I want an environment that creates the necessary. Allow him. Yeah, for me as a finance person,
yes,
my perspective is not on policy. My perspective is on harmonization of fiscal policy, of financial policy, ensuring that we have not only financial autonomy, but we have administrative autonomy. Yeah, so
Eric has literally vulgarated these agencies to mean that they have no bearing at all.
No, for me, let me just conclude on the issue of the environment that we have created. Right now, for me, what I'm acknowledging, I am not blind to the fact of the environment we have created by this decision. By this decision. Yeah, as I made a standpoint earlier on that those are Ugandans. Those are not NUP members to me. Those are people who had a political idea and are now incarcerated. And regardless my position,
but you cannot downplay their identity. They are members of the National Unity Platform. You cannot downplay it.
And for me, this is my view as an individual. But let me conclude on the issue of the environment.
Please,
is that right now we have put ourselves at risk. We have not closed collaborations. We have just changed the terms of how they are operating. Is that we are likely, we need now to be sensitive that in the coming times we do good actions in order that not to lose international credibility. There is a chance that we may to be isolated.
And that waters down the argument of Alex and Sifa. Because you put yourself in a very awkward situation as a country.
Now the comment.
The whole world knowing they don't respect human rights.
Yes.
And they actually eject agencies that are promoting human rights.
But let's remember that I'm not shooting myself in the foot. I'm acknowledging the fact that this is the environment we have created to put a touch on our own local institutions. To put a touch on our own the threat of isolation. That's what would have happened if we did what you have just suggested of saying do a full withdrawal. And now again, but look at the opportunity here. Let's talk about the issue of jobs. If I'm a Ugandan today, I am mapping all the activities of the Human Rights Commission in the country. I'm ensuring that I'm positioning myself or my NGO towards ensuring and advancing those activities. I am drafting my budget, and I'm ensuring that even the recruitment, we have more Ugandans with them.
Thank you, Eric. Let me bring in Alex here. At least on the argument of Edgar, why not counter them? And I think that has been the biggest problem of government. You have the opposition drive a particular agenda and kind of created the public relations of what our country portray, what our country is. But why not at a very intellectual level say, wait a minute, you are choosing us of this and that, but we have a different report. For us, our evaluation is different. What stops you from countering these accusations with facts?
Thank you very much. I think somewhat we are getting ahead of ourselves. We are talking about a report by a ministry, and yet the agency has not said a word. We are concluding, yet they haven't said a word.
Which agency has said the word?
The agency that closed. If at all, it has closed anyway.
No, but can it remain open when government has come out?
What you only said is in the terms and conditions could have changed. Because the office in Uganda could have closed, but we prefer working with Geneva.
But you see, that's not accidental. It has a background.
I'm getting to that. I'm getting to that. Because earlier on, we were talking about how these reports can be manipulated, they can be biased.
And the question is, because why aren't you on record as government for countering these reports at an intellectual level?
No,
because you have a whole ministry of foreign affairs.
No, sincerely.
In fact, it has a department.
No, sincerely.
That is mandated with, ensuring what the world perceives of Uganda. Why not write a document to the United Nations and say, wait a minute, what you're saying is not true. The people of this country are better than ever before.
No, sincerely.
In terms of human rights.
Sincerely speaking, by the time this office opened here, things were not right.
She must be struggling to defend a position that is very hard. After a very short commercial break, we will come back. Well, I'll give you an opportunity to meet everyone. Keep it locked on Western Uganda's biggest radio station, 91.2 Crooze FM. Great music, great friends. My name is West Gabanyaji. The big city is on.
It's tough. It's bold. Creative Digital Media. Creative Digital Media. Creative Digital Media.
Twenty-five minutes past 10 o'clock on Western Uganda's biggest radio station, 91.2 Crooze FM. Great music, good friends. The big city zone. My name is Westige Banyaji. Catch us online on www.cruisefm.com/stream, and we are on TV. So if at all you want to see us, go to Crooze TV. We are right there. All this is courtesy of Creative Digital Media that is doing a very fantastic job, and we are Crooze TV still on YouTube, 912 Crooze FM on Facebook and Instagram. And for Twitter, I can see the messages are coming in real good. And I want to thank you all for taking part of the show. My good friends, the feedback is coming in, and keep it here. We are talking about the closure or the intention to close the office of the United Nations Human Rights here in our country, Uganda. With me in studio is Sifa Safi, regular panelist on the big set, Mr. Alex Gretrijero, political analyst, and he belongs to the National Resistance Movement, Mr. Eric Katunji, who is a political analyst and educationist, and I have engineer Edgar Mtunjisa, political analyst, and I have Mr. Peter Mpaka, belongs to the National Unity Platform. I want to say thank you so much for all of you that have started up with us in this show. This edition feels good because it's charged up. The panel is having a good time debating and exchanging knowledge and information as far as human rights of our country are concerned. Manzi Munanura, I see your message, and you're saying the Republic of Uganda is a member of the United Nations and the African Union. It has ratified many human rights conventions and thus made it binding on international commitments to adhere to the standards laid down in some of these universal human rights documents. His concern is on the international legal consequences on dismissal of unimplementing a organization of a mandate we signed up for. The lawyers in the House can guide on that. Uganda has ratified the following UN human rights treaties: the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights, Convention Against Torture and Other Cruel, Inhuman and Degrading Treatment for All Punishment, Convention on Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, Convention on Rights of the Child, International Convention of Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination, International Convention on the Protection of the Rights of All Migrant Workers and Members of their Families, ratification being the action of signing or giving formal consent to a treaty, contract, agreement, or making it valid. Do these treaties we ratify still stand? Because now, what is wrong with being supervised? If at all you think you're very independent, why not respect the reports that are made by even your the institutions here? The Uganda National Human Rights Commission has come out with reports pinning the UPDF, pinning the intelligence services of this country, ISO and whatever. pinning the Uganda police, on disrespecting the rights of Ugandans, beating them, incarcerating them, keeping them incommunicado. All this is on record. If at all we say, well and good, you've chased the outsiders because you're a sovereign state, what about respecting even the reports that are made by your own agencies? Sifa Safi.
Thank you, Banyaji. First of all, well, thank you to the callers and those who sent in their messages. I want to thank, first of all, Mr. Eric for putting something very straight and clear. We are not saying that because they're not, renewing the mandate of that office in Uganda, we are not advocating for human rights. That's where Peter and Mr. Mutunis are confused from. We are saying we can do it as a country, as Africans, and as a continent, not necessarily from the UN. I want to show you that the UN has its own problems that they haven't fixed. An audit from the UN's Office of Internal Oversight Services came out in 2017, and they carried out this audit and found out that the agency on refugees had mismanaged funds in Uganda to do with refugees. There was a lot of corruption, mismanagement of funds. They were overpaying for things, for goods and services. There was massive corruption which have affected over 1 million refugees in this country. Why can't they fix such things first before they start saying that they're monitoring human rights in Uganda? Because by denying these refugees to get what they're supposed to get, you are denying them rights. And what we are saying is, like I said at the beginning, why should we wait for these people to define for us rights? Because they are saying that it is a right, it's a human right, I think, for someone to be gay. And some of you, like Peter and Mr. Mtunisa, who think that we should agree with whatever they say, are going to say, yes, it's a right for someone to be gay. And they want to, put it us on Ugandans, and we support it. So what we are saying is, Banyaji, you all advocate for human rights. Me, you, and any other person.
And the universal.
But it should be us to define ourselves and our rights. I gave you an example of someone who was suffocated on the street.
But some of these rights are inherent. It don't even matter whether Ugandan or Burundian or Congolese or American.
That's what we are saying.
They're inborn. What gives you these rights?
I gave an example of Congo. And when Mr. Mutunis attempted to answer that, he told us that someone died, and that shows he was committed. It's not about someone. And let me tell you, UN does not rotate about that person who died. It is UN, and it has a lot of people and other countries. So what we are saying, you had a lot of time and you said a lot of things. So what we are saying, Babaji, yes, let him write. What I'm saying, whether he died or not, UN did not cease to exist in Congo. But what has happened? We saw a group of young people in Congo demonstrating in Beni, and I don't know which other whatever. They were demonstrating and saying, we don't want these people here. They came here under the pretext that they're going to fight for human rights. Instead, they're doing other things. That teeth bites with the same teeth that it plays with. While you're protecting human rights here as UN, planes are flying out with gold and whatever. So we know what these people are doing. I wonder why we still have elite people who are fighting for those people to exist in Uganda. We should be fighting for Africans to be, to be given the courage and determination to fight for rights as a country.
But why don't you expel the money they're investing in health, in the health sector of this country? There are some agencies that are investing a lot of money.
If they're doing it the right way, that is good. I told you that we cannot take out to them. Even I give an example.
What is good for the goods is good for Uganda, right? They're saying.
What we are saying.
If at all you're saying.
May be biased depending on what it's all about. If we have someone who runs to the United States of America, to just report over small things because he's a politician and he's a candidate and he's going to stand. What do you expect of such a person when it comes to human rights? So what we are saying, wait. You had a lot of So what I'm saying here is, Banyaji,
yes,
we fight for human rights as a country. We have agencies here locally that can fight for human rights.
But the question I'm putting to you, Sifa, is that these reports are made by these same indigenous institutions.
Wait.
And where do they go?
Wait. I want to talk about.
Let me ask you, Sifa, as a Ugandan,
yes,
don't you know that human rights are violated by agencies of government in this country?
True. Somewhere, somehow, some of these human rights are being violated.
No, by and large.
What we are saying, these international monitors,
yes,
the darlings of the Peters and the Mutunjisas, the angels like my friend here said, why can't they monitor the human rights in their countries first? Because before they come to Africa. Simply because you donate some money to our country, then you think you should dictate what you're supposed to do. Sam Kola gave a very good thing over oil and the pipeline, and Mr. Mutunisa was saying he was not in support of the EU. So why do you agree with them on the issue of oil, on human rights and not oil? Because it was not done in good faith. This oil pipeline thing, they were targeting other things, And I want to tell you that when these people come in, and they show all this love for us and whatever, there is some bad intentions. For example, they say that when the whites came with is it Europeans or whatever, they were carrying a Bible in one hand and a gun in another. So these people are carrying money for us here, but they have bad intentions.
Thank you, Sifa. Good report. Yes, Tunjisa.
Thanks so much. First of all, I need to be clear on record. DRC, I give you a difference that UN is not the world military. The DRC question was not just diplomatic as how UN processes go. It required also military power, but also the forces burned there were not just about UN. That is why even now the joint operation we have as EAC there is one that is military and not just diplomatic. And UN, that's not the responsibility. The context there in DRC is different. When it comes to human rights, you don't need the military to enforce human rights or watch them. That was different, number one. Number two, on the issue of oil and versus human rights, I told you why we were able to go against the EU and why I was able to go against the EU. There was a report on why EU was against ECOP. It had its resolution, but we also had from Uganda's government, the Petroleum Authority of Uganda had its sort of response to that report, that you would analyze fully and see that these guys are on the wrong side, which is not happening here. That's why we are saying that if there was a report again here from the Uganda's context of why they think the situation of human rights is okay, then we would have the evidence to debate and perhaps we would be against their standard. But number two, we are not here to invent the wheel. This is not a discussion on whether this right has been determined by this state. We are not here to debate whether gay rights are supposed to be rights. That will be a debate for another day. And I think our position on that is clear. Listen, the discussion there.
Why another day?
Yes, because gay rights and LGBTQ is another debate. We are not here to debate that. We are here to debate I think there are many issues there, but also I think that is an issue of legislation. That's why the parliament.
And now the question would be, why would you find it very horrible for the United Nations and the West to have to push it down the throat of Uganda to accept the rights of the gay and lesbian community?
I think,
and then you castigate them, but then you're very slow when they come up with reports to do with the state of human rights in our country.
No. First of all,
that knows a lot of who you are on the other parts.
First of all, it's very important that we understand UN is not the United States of America.
Yes,
the LGBT
but the position
and the
United Nations is also clear on that.
Yes, and it's very simple because for them theirs is on a national law which is largely vague on that all these human rights deserve their rights. But the agenda and people who is so much cutting down the thought of Africans to accept it are largely Americans. And the agenda, I don't think I do agree with that agenda. I think my position that is clear. But here we're here to debate not just that, because that is a very big topic.
Yes,
we could go into things of consent and biology and psychology. To down whether the rights should be.
Perhaps
but that's why I'm off that for now. So for now we are back to here on the office. Now the issue of the office, these people here have all these illusions of, you know what, we have alternatives, we have local NGOs. CIFA here was wrongly accusing UN that it has its own problems. We saw it here when it was.
We do have them because
listen. In those offices, in those offices, it's your own Ugandans who are handling that process. UN having offices there doesn't mean the people who are in there employed exacerbating the corruption, as you mentioned, and necessarily from Geneva. They are your own Ugandans, and the corruption as a locality, right?
Yes.
But beyond that, that does not again exclude you from giving that report. That's what we expected. If that's true and have authority, that's a report you would have given to us. Why you think this entity cannot hold conclusively? I think now the alternatives of local NGOs is what we get here. That alternative is just also really very interesting because it doesn't work. We've gone to you why those local NGOs cannot. It's not that for them to function, you must first deal with this office. They can function with it. But moreover, we think this situation now, you're going to make those local NGOs even harder for them to work because they've been getting some funding and some sort of lobbying easily because they would access these UN offices. Your government has no track record. Give me any budget that you know that is allocated to human rights protection here in Uganda to local NGOs. That is from our
but government does not fund organization, non-profit organization that you should know. So why should they invest where they have no mandate?
Now, and the question here is now when you chase away the person who has been doing that, and then we still expect them to actually have the money and then build more support as you're claiming. The two don't exist.
Yes, but I want to say this. Let's allow the information.
Peter, before you come in, Mr. Mutwins, I was talking about the issue of Ugandans being the ones in these offices, so we cannot accuse the UN of corruption and whatever, like I said in this audit. But they are the monitors, and the supervisors. So you cannot start telling us of Ugandans. And just like we've had people severally accusing President Museveni of the torture of Ugandans because of the security agencies, and they're saying he's the commander-in-chief. So that's exactly what we are talking about. If we have corruption in these offices and you're claiming that it's Ugandans who work there, who monitors and supervises them?
But you have a point, Sifa, because we've all sat here and thrown stones at His Excellency the President.
Severally.
But he's not in Kampala arresting and brutalizing Ugandans.
You also accuse him of failing and he's not implemented.
Because he has the duty of care, quote unquote, to make sure Ugandans are
Absolutely.
safe. Peter Mpaka.
Thank you, SJ. Actually, you've hit exactly on the point I wanted to note. Because this time I want to come out to advise the government to investigate people like Sifa Safi and Great Rugero. Because there are things where even if you are an extremist, you should be balanced in the discussion. Wait. President Museveni is on record to have come out and condemned torture and impunitive abuse of human rights. He has, I'm telling you that you need actually to investigate your own government. But there may be people, no, not a contradiction, I'm telling you that there may be people inside of you who are even just against you yourselves. And you may be working for those people. By coming here to discuss it, that there is no, because what we're trying to say is that there is no human rights abuse in Uganda. And we are saying that this is something that the president himself has come out and even told the people to stop repeating actions which were done by former armies.
So you're saying what
I'm trying to tell you is that this is something you should admit and say that even us as NRM activists, we are trying to see that the abuses we see on humans in Uganda, we are fighting them. So the cause of this office is something which is very wrong, and we should admit it.
Let's hit a short bumper. We'll be right back with Alex Rugero and Sifa Safi and Eric Katonji. Good morning.
Creative Digital Media.
We on the last lap of the show. Thank you so much for holding up real good here in Western Uganda's biggest radio station, 91.2 Crooze FM. Great music, good friends. The voice on your radio is Wesige Banyaji. The big sit happens every particular Saturday from 9 a.m. to 11, where we sit and discuss issues to do with our country. Me in studio is Alex Great Rugero, Sifa Safi, Eric Katonji, Edgar Mtundisa, and Peter Mpaka. We're talking about the intention of government to close the office of the United Nations Human Rights here in Uganda. Thank you so much for your feedback And the lifeline of the show, the telephone calls, the messages on our social media handles, 912 Crooze FM on Twitter. Go right there, put a question on our topic of discussion. I'll be able to read some of your views. And for those that can be able to call in right now on 752 912 912 and 780 912 910. Raybeck Twin Martinez, I see you. And Brenna Bay, who is saying, this portrays that government has not been benefiting from this, so it found reason to close the office. Derek Aimwe Taremwa, who is saying, I will say, we knew it earlier because this government has deteriorated the human rights and they thought the UNHRC is against the government because of its acts, meaning there won't be more or any organizations against the crimes. Well, you've lost it a bit there, but I think it will be using, well, write a little bit better so that I can be able to read what you're saying. Deus Gumisres, I see you. You're listening again from Rwampara, and you're saying maybe they find no benefits in the organization. Ivan Pavlov, you're listening again from Uganda. You're saying this means that we don't expect much in the next elections when there isn't any human rights organization. And Lord Kagame, you're listening in. I want to thank all of you that are sending in the messages. Let me go to our Twitter, where we put a question on what you think about government's refusal to renew the mandate of the office of the United Nations Human Rights here in Uganda. Wakanda Regis, on Twitter, you're saying the government refusal to renew the contract is the main cause. The aim now is to collecting money, not doing technical work. You're listening in from Masaka City. I thank you. Mugabe Mahad in Kawade, I also want to thank you for your message. Ian Ainomcha, you're saying Museveni's government has failed totally. Thank you for the show and listening in from Montungamo. Victor Jr., you're saying I thank you, who just feel that human rights have done anything, and we are seeing our brothers and sisters dying in our country. Marshall Ahebwa, I see your message. You want to thank you so much, and a couple of other good people that have sent in your messages. Let me read one more message before I come back to the panel here. Muhire Dennis, you're saying, though human rights protection and observance is everyone's concern, not the United Nations presence in Uganda. There can be human rights violation in this country, either in the presence of the UN or not. And departure of the office from Uganda has no impact on human rights because Ugandans are implementers of their own rights, not the United States, not the United Nations. Muhire Dennis from Bukanga Isinzuro, I want to thank you, sir, because you are an ardent listener of the big set. And a couple of you who are enjoying the show, we keep doing this just for you. Hope we add some value to the knowledge that you have. Alex Gweturigero, the question to me is, to you perhaps, before Eric has some information, but as you ponder on the question, on the will and commitment of government to respect human rights, because it must be disheartening for a government superintended by General Museveni, who picked 27 arms and about 43 individuals, went in Kabamba, overran government, and some of the reasons were extrajudicial killings, illegal detentions, abductions, torture. He came and said, I will never be able to supervise a country where a Ugandan is killed or disappears and there is no trace. I cannot be part of such a country as president. In this day and age, we see this happen. Plainclothed men in cars that have no number plates, arresting our people and disappearing. It should be shaming for government. As you think about my answer, let me allow Eric give us some information.
Thank you very much. I would like to let everyone know that when Ukraine ignored its local capacity, they thought NATO would come to their rescue when Putin decided to march across the border. The illusion of a solution is what the discussion of today has mostly been about. Is that in the words of one of our brothers here, Mr. Edgar, he said that it is Ugandans who are actually corrupt in the offices that were here locally. bringing the allegations that SIFA brought on board. So, what does that mean exactly? That they have failed to maintain their standards here at their local branch? Then it is better we collaborate some of these issues from Geneva. A full withdrawal, I was initially against that. Sincerely, we are still in collaboration with the development arm. We are still in collaboration with UNICEF. That collaboration is going on. But when an institution does not know how to handle its own manners, why should they tell us on how to behave? What I am noticing from the people on the negative side, or maybe in support of the, who are against the closure, is that they believe that it's going to be the end of the world. But I say that that is celebrating a battle but ignoring the war. The war is not this local conflict that we have. The law is the loss of sovereignty. We have had names like the European Union. We have had names like the United Nations. Ugandans, where is the East African Community? Where is the African Union? Where is the African Union Commission for Human Rights?
Yes.
Where is the East African Commission for Human Rights? For me, I trust that. Let us celebrate this sovereignty, and as I may conclude, this is a business opportunity. I would encourage every social scientist to now map out the activities of the Human Rights Commission
and take them up.
And then take them up. I would also, there are other opportunities. Only three more opportunities.
In a second.
Only three more opportunities. Another opportunity is to work towards strengthening the independence of the judiciary. Now with case backlog, there is now opportunity to put pressure on government since it has put a torch on. That's a job and business opportunity. Also to professionalize police and training. Not only do we need this kind of defense orientation, but police needs other kinds of trainings as well. And for me, I'm looking at a creation of other mild opportunities that we can capitalize on.
Thank you so much for that information, Eric. Alex.
Thank you very much.
On the will commitment of government to respect human rights, really, something they fought for so hard.
Thank you very much, our listeners, those who have sent in messages, those who are calling. The host, your question, this office has been closed. It's been here for 17 years, and I'm very sure if the government came to power to fight such kinds of acts, probably somewhere along the way it could have been forgotten while they were cleaning up. Along the way.
Why UN missions are failing in Africa.
But again,
published by DW.
But again,
in Africa,
I want to inform our listeners, the commander-in-chief, there are so many sister security agencies. We could not say it in particular it is so and so. We just have to work on professionalizing them. If the mode of operation was lifting and throwing, this it is not only the public or the international stage. Okay. Again, I want to inform my brothers here. We cannot have to leave our home burning for the international community to clap for us because of human rights. What would it help for you? The community, the international community, to clap for you and say Uganda is good, Uganda is heaven, yet we are busy dying within us.
How would they say that when they know that something is good?
No, because what I'm saying is
conclusively our time is fast.
As I'm concluding, let us not run for these international agencies. Let's first clean ourselves up so that we can look good outside.
Okay, thank you so much, Alex Gretorigero. Parting shot, Edgar Mtunsa.
I think the parting shot is very easy, and I think for context for listeners who are listening to this debate, this is not a debate of whether the UN system there should be an alternative of Ugandan locals. This is a debate of coexistence. It's not about weighing alternatives, these ones versus these ones. Number two, on issue of interests. This was not a discussion on whether the interests of the Europeans versus the interest of ours, because there we would have interrogated whether illegal detention is bad according to them and yet to us is right. That would have been the discussion. This is simply about why would you take off these offices, yet you already considered that perhaps their presence or their absence does not add or subtract anything. then why would you harm the international reputation of a country, that you're going to be the country which dismissed the human rights as sort of a body? But beyond that, there are many opportunities that are lost in terms of jobs and etc., but also in terms of conferences and other sort of international fora where our people could go and speak authoritatively about human rights. So I think therefore it's very important that we continue. I think it's very important that we continue, that we don't need to be some sort of cowards, right? If there were any issues to confront, even if it was this World Gay agenda, we can still confront it even with the UN presence here, with their offices. It's not their presence here that would take us put all these things. So we don't need to be cowards. We need to take these guys up front and challenge them. Challenge them.
Thank you. Sifa Safi, in a second, your parting shot.
Thank you, Kanyaji. In a second, I want to thank the callers. I don't know where Peter and Mr. Mtunsa are after hearing every caller saying that they should close and everything. So I don't know why they actually failing to give the reasons as why they support these people to be here. But for me, Kanyaji, one thing is we are saying human rights must be observed, but not necessarily by those people because they have their other intentions.
They don't have clean hands.
Then, Kanyaji, I want to tell you that, unlike what Peter is saying, we know personally, that there are some mistakes made. There are human rights violations in this country. But what I'm saying is, the president, for example, you gave an example of this man who was shot dead, Mr. The late
Zebra.
The president came out and apologized, and to me that
you
said we don't have time and we're interrupting.
Yes.
This for me was humility at its best, because that person has died. We have nothing to do. It was very sad, and other people have also died. But he apologized and somehow relieved the hearts of the Ugandans. But for me, there are errant officers who should be dealt with as individuals, and we have to know that sometimes there are operational errors. This is where the government should work towards to ensure that these operational errors do not exist.
Thank you so much.
But finally,
yes,
we are Africans, and we shall find solutions to our own problems.
Thank you, Sifa. Good point to conclude.
But no,
don't water it.
UN has failed. To maintain cordial relations with countries where they go. Okay. Congo, South Sudan.
Thank you.
So Uganda is not exceptional.
Thank you, Sifa. Parting shot in a second.
For me, I think that this office was becoming more relevant. We have been seeing petitions being taken there by journalists, by activists. So the pressure it was putting on government through even its latest report is why we are seeing this. And then number two.
In a second, sir.
Number two, sir, is that for me, I want to tell my friends in NRM that when the issue of when we are talking about the issue of human rights, it should concern you, because right now it is not people who are being adopted, who are being tortured. It is the opposition which is suffering. You may think all is well. You may think all is well.
Thank you, Peter.
Otherwise, I really wish you a good weekend.
Thank you. Parting shot in a second. In a second, sir.
All right. What I would really say is that let us celebrate this act of sovereignty. Let us understand that the responsibility has now been transferred from a consultant onto the hands of the active, of the key stakeholders.
Thank you, Eric.
Of the state.
Alex Ruggiero, your parting shot.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Trainings for them so we can have this whole issue once and for all done. And I'll take on another. My brother said there are opportunities that have opened. Let's open our own and start also talking and writing.
Thank you, Alex Great Ruggiero. Thank you, Sifa Safi. Thank you, Eric Katunzi. Thank you, Edgar Mtunsa. Thank you, Peter Mpaka. My punchline this week is that we shall not accept homosexuality in this country. If the West is going to spoil our children with literature that promotes homosexuality, not Uganda. I am in support of legislation to criminalize gay, lesbian, transgender relations. My name is Wesley Banyaji. Let's meet next Saturday on the big seat. Good morning.
The views expressed on this program are not necessarily the views of this radio station or its management. This radio